The crystal glass shattered on the marble floor, and I felt the cold wine drip from my hair onto my white dress as 300 guests stared in complete silence. My mother-in-law's voice cut through the room like a knife. "You're nothing but a pathetic gold digger." She had absolutely no idea that I held the key to destroying her entire empire, and I was about to use it. But let me start from the beginning, because this story is about so much more than just revenge. My name is Jasmine, and I grew up knowing what it meant to have nothing. When I was 16 years old, my mother died. She was a single parent who worked herself to death, literally. 3 jobs, no health insurance, and a stubborn refusal to slow down because she wanted to give me a better life. I found her one morning collapsed in the kitchen before her first shift. The doctor said her heart just gave out. I said the world took everything from her and gave nothing back. After she died, I had nowhere to go. No family, no money, no safety net. I lived in my car for 6 months while finishing high school. I'd sleep in library bathrooms, shower at the local gym with a membership I could barely afford, and study under streetlights because my car battery couldn't handle the interior lights staying on all night. I made a promise at my mother's grave, standing there in shoes with holes in them. I'll never be powerless again. That promise changed everything. I became obsessed with building something that no one could ever take away from me. At 19, I was coding in public libraries, teaching myself everything I could about artificial intelligence and corporate acquisitions. I created a revolutionary software that could predict merger success rates with 93% accuracy. At 21, I sold my first patent for $2 million. I cried in the lawyer's office when the check cleared. My mother never saw more than $30,000 in a single year of her entire life. But here's the thing about growing up with nothing. You learn not to trust anyone. Not completely. I built J.M. Sterling Holdings in complete secrecy. I used my initials and my mother's maiden name. I hired a male actor to appear as the face of the company at public events. I never did interviews, never appeared in photographs, operated entirely through lawyers and proxies. By the time I was 27, my company was worth over $400 million, and I still lived in a modest apartment and drove a used car. I didn't need people to know who I was. I just needed to know I'd never be that scared 16-year-old girl again. That's when I met Daniel. It was at a charity event where I volunteered, serving food to homeless families. He was there teaching art to kids, covered in paint and laughing with this genuine warmth that made something in my chest ache. We started talking, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I could breathe around someone. He didn't want anything from me. He didn't know I had anything to want. Daniel was a teacher at a public school. He drove a beat-up truck and lived in a small apartment and talked about his students like they were his own children. We dated for 2 years, and every day I wanted to tell him the truth about who I really was. But that scared, broken part of me kept whispering, what if he changes? What if everyone changes when they know? I did investigate him, though. I'm not proud of it, but I had to know. That's when I discovered his family owned Anderson Industries, a manufacturing company worth about $500 million. His father had died 3 years earlier, and his mother, Patricia, now ran everything. Daniel never talked about the family money. He'd been estranged from them for years, choosing teaching over the family business. That's actually what made me fall in love with him. He chose purpose over privilege. When Daniel proposed, I said yes, without hesitation. But that meant meeting Patricia. The first time I walked into her mansion, I knew I was in enemy territory. The house was massive, cold, filled with expensive things that had no warmth. Patricia looked me up and down like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. "Where did you buy that dress?" she asked, her voice dripping with disdain. "A thrift store?" I was wearing a dress that cost $300, which felt like a lot to me. I later learned she spent more than that on her daily flower arrangements. I stayed quiet that first meeting. I was studying her, the way I'd studied every opponent in every business negotiation. Patricia wasn't just rude, she was calculating. Every insult was designed to break me down, to make me feel small. Her daughter Lauren was just like her, all fake smiles and cruel eyes. Only Daniel's younger brother Kevin showed me any kindness, apologizing for his mother's behavior when she wasn't looking. What followed were 6 months of systematic cruelty that would have broken most people. In the first week, Patricia served me food I was allergic to, claiming she forgot, even though Daniel had told her 3 times. A month in, Lauren posted edited photos of me online with captions mocking my clothes and background. Patricia accidentally uninvited me to a family dinner and then told Daniel I never showed up, trying to make me look disrespectful. 3 months into our engagement, Patricia tried to bribe me. She wrote a check for $50,000 and slid it across her marble kitchen counter. "Leave my son," she said. "This is more money than someone like you will ever see." I looked at that check, an amount that once would have changed my life, and left it sitting there. "I love Daniel," I said quietly. "That's not for sale." Her face twisted with rage. She hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on me. She spread rumors at her country club that I was a con artist after the family fortune. She excluded me from every family event she could, and when she couldn't exclude me, she made sure I knew I wasn't welcome. Through it all, I documented everything. Screenshots, recordings, witnesses. I'm a businesswoman. I know how to build a case. But here's what Patricia didn't know. What no one knew. My company was already circling Anderson Industries like a shark. My analysts had been tracking their financial collapse for over a year. They were $50 million in debt and hemorrhaging money. And I'd discovered something else. Patricia had been embezzling company funds for years. $15 million funneled into offshore accounts through fake invoices and shell companies. She was robbing her own family blind and cooking the books to hide it from the board members. When Anderson Industries reached out to JM Sterling Holdings, desperately seeking an acquisition to avoid bankruptcy, I couldn't believe my luck. Fate had literally delivered my worst enemy right to my doorstep. I agreed to the $800 million deal through my lawyers, never revealing my identity. I personally designed the terms, building in clauses that would expose Patricia's crimes during the due diligence process. I set the closing date for 1 week after our engagement party. My assistant Jennifer asked me, "This is personal now, isn't it?" I looked at her and said, "She wants to break me. Let's see who breaks first." The engagement party was Patricia's final masterpiece of cruelty. She invited 400 guests, business associates, high society friends, distant relatives Daniel barely knew. She deliberately didn't tell me the dress code, claiming she forgot to send me the invitation details. When I arrived in my simple cream-colored dress, elegant but understated, I immediately realized my mistake. Every other woman there was in a designer gown, dripping with jewelry. Patricia had set me up perfectly. She forced me to stand at the front of the room during her toast. I stood there, feeling all those eyes on me, knowing I looked underdressed, knowing that's exactly what she wanted. Patricia's voice rang out, clear and cruel. "We must acknowledge the unexpected addition to our family." She paused, letting the words sink in, letting people laugh. "You know, when Daniel first told me he was engaged, I thought surely to someone from our world. Someone with the proper background, the right education, the appropriate breeding." She listed everything she found wrong with me, each word chosen to cut deeper. "Jasmine has no family. My mother was dead. No education from any proper schools, no career worth mentioning, no class, no grace, and frankly, no business being here." People shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. That's what money does. It buys silence. "A mother knows a gold digger when she sees one," Patricia concluded, "and I'm looking at one right now." Daniel tried to intervene, standing up from his seat. Patricia held up her hand, silencing him with a look. She'd trained him his whole life to obey. I found my voice then, surprising myself with how steady it was. "I love your son," I said clearly. "That's all that matters. That's all that should matter." Patricia's face turned red with pure rage. The mask slipped completely. "Love?" she practically screamed. "You don't even know what love is, you little leech. You found a meal ticket and you dug your claws in." She grabbed her wine glass, full of expensive red wine, and I knew what was coming. Part of me could have stepped aside, But I stood there, chin up, looking her dead in the eye. She threw the entire glass directly in my face. The wine hit me like ice water despite the room being warm. It soaked through my hair, ran down my face, drenched the front of my dress. The crystal glass fell from her hand and shattered on the marble floor at my feet, the sound impossibly loud in the shocked silence. 300 people gasped, hands flying to mouths, but no one moved. No one helped. Patricia's voice dripped with venom as she leaned close to me, wine dripping from her own hands now. "That's what I think of you. You're nothing, a pathetic failure who trapped my son with probably a fake pregnancy or some other scheme. You'll never, ever be good enough for this family. You're garbage, and garbage belongs in the street." Lauren started a slow clap from across the room, mocking me. A few people laughed nervously. Daniel sat frozen in his chair, his face pale with shock. Kevin started toward me, but Patricia snapped, "Stay where you are!" He stopped. I stood there for a long moment, feeling the wine drip down my arms, feeling the weight of my mother's memory, feeling every day of those 6 months of calculated cruelty. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. My voice came out cold as ice when I finally spoke. "Are you finished?" Patricia smiled triumphantly. "Get out of my house." I smiled back, and something in that smile made her expression flicker with uncertainty. "Interesting choice of words," I said softly. "Your house." I let that hang in the air for a moment, watching confusion cross her face. Then I turned and walked calmly toward the bathroom, glass crunching under my heels. In the bathroom mirror, I looked at myself, wine-stained, hair ruined, dress destroyed. For just a second, I saw my mother's face overlaid on mine, and I heard her voice as clearly as if she were standing beside me. "Now, baby, do it now. Show them what you're made of." I pulled out my phone and texted Jennifer, "Connect me to the venue's display system. It's time." When I walked back into that ballroom, every conversation stopped. I must have looked insane, still drenched in wine, walking with my head high like I owned the place. I pulled out my phone and connected to the massive screens positioned around the room for the party's photo displays. "Before I leave," I said, my voice carrying in the silent room, "there's something everyone should know." Patricia's voice cracked like a whip. "Security! Remove this woman from my home immediately." 2 security guards started toward me, but something in my stance made them hesitate. "I wouldn't do that," I said calmly, looking directly at Patricia. "Especially you, Patricia." I used her first name deliberately, a sign of disrespect that made her face flush again. "Patricia," I continued, "how's the Anderson Industries acquisition going? The $800 million deal with JM Sterling Holdings? Still on track for next week?" Her face went completely white, like someone had drained all the blood from her body in an instant. "That's confidential business," she stammered. "The deal that's going to save your failing company?" I pressed. "The company you've been running into the ground while embezzling funds?" The room erupted in gasps and whispers. Several board members I recognized from my research stood up, confusion and anger on their faces. I touched my phone screen and the JM Sterling Holdings logo appeared on every screen in the room. Then a photo appeared, my professional headshot, the one I'd kept hidden for years. CEO and founder, Jasmine Maria Sterling. The room exploded. People were shouting, standing up, pointing at the screens and then at me. Patricia stumbled backward like I'd physically hit her. Daniel's mouth fell open. Kevin's eyes went wide with understanding. Lauren looked like she might faint. "My name is Jasmine Maria Sterling," I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. "I built my company from absolutely nothing. I started coding in public libraries because I couldn't afford a computer. I sold my first patent at 21. Today, my company is valued at $2.1 billion. More images flashed on the screens, Forbes articles, business awards, acquisition announcements, all with my company's name. "For 6 months," I continued, looking directly at Patricia, "you called me nothing. You said I had no career, no achievements, no worth. Let's talk about what you are." I pressed another button, and financial documents filled the screens. "These are the records of your embezzlement. $15 million stolen from Anderson Industries over 5 years, fake invoices, offshore accounts, falsified reports to the board. The board members were on their feet now, shouting. Patricia's lawyer tried to reach for his phone. I kept going, relentless now. You mocked my dead mother, a woman who worked 3 jobs and died at 48 trying to give her daughter a chance. A photo of my mother appeared on screen, young, smiling, beautiful. She was worth 10 of you. Some of the guests were crying now, moved by the photo, horrified by Patricia's behavior. You called me a gold digger, I said, my voice rising. I'm worth 4 times what your company is. You threw wine on me and called me garbage. I gestured to my stained dress. Consider that the last drink you'll ever have at my expense. I pulled up the acquisition contract on the screens. The deal was supposed to close in 48 hours. These were the original terms: fair, reasonable, designed to save your company and preserve jobs. But you know what? I'm changing them. Here are my new terms. The screens showed a new contract. I read each point aloud. Term 1. Patricia Anderson resigns from Anderson Industries immediately with no severance package. Term 2. She issues a public written apology to me, posted on every social media platform and in every major newspaper. Term 3. She enters a rehabilitation facility for her alcohol abuse problem. Several people nodded at that, clearly aware of her drinking, and completes the full program. Term 4. Lauren Anderson loses access to her trust fund until she completes 1,000 hours of charity work with underprivileged families. Term 5. Kevin Anderson is promoted to Chief Operating Officer, where he should have been years ago. The room was in complete chaos now. I raised my voice over the noise. Accept these terms, and the deal proceeds. Your company survives. 2,000 employees keep their jobs. Refuse, and I walk away right now. Your company dies in 6 months when your debts come due. You'll lose everything. The company, the house, the reputation, everything. I looked at my phone. You have 48 hours to decide. Choose wisely. That's when Daniel finally moved. He stood up, walked through the crowd, and took my hand. His hand was shaking, but his voice was steady when he spoke. Mom, you did this to yourself. I told you to treat her with respect. I begged you to be kind. You chose cruelty, and now you're facing the consequences. Patricia's face crumpled. You'd choose her over your own mother? After everything I've done for you? She's going to be my wife, Daniel said firmly. And you just assaulted her in front of 400 people. You humiliated the woman I love because she wasn't born wealthy. You're not the mother I thought you were. Kevin stepped forward too, standing on my other side. I'm with them, Mom. What you did tonight was unforgivable. Lauren ran from the room, sobbing. Patricia collapsed into a chair, all the fight draining out of her. She looked old suddenly, small and broken. Part of me felt sorry for her, but only part. The next 48 hours were a media frenzy. Someone at the party had recorded everything and leaked it online. The video went viral, 10 million views in the first day. The business world rallied around me. Patricia's crimes were investigated. The board of Anderson Industries demanded her resignation before my deadline even expired. Patricia signed everything, every single term. Her public apology was front-page news. She admitted to the embezzlement, the cruelty, everything. She entered rehab quietly, her reputation destroyed. Lauren, after her initial tantrum, actually followed through with the charity work. 6 months later, she called me to apologize, her voice small and genuine. I was just like her, she whispered. I'm trying to be better. The company thrived under Kevin's leadership. He was brilliant, fair, innovative. Everything Patricia wasn't. We saved every single job and added 500 more within a year. The company's value increased to $1.2 billion. Patricia, to her credit, stayed sober. She lived in a modest apartment on the allowance the board granted her, nothing like her former mansion. 1 year after that wine-stained night, I created a scholarship fund in my mother's name, full rides to college for students who'd experienced homelessness. Patricia came to the launch ceremony. She looked different, humbler, quieter, somehow more human. At the end of the event, she approached me carefully. "I'm sorry," she said, and this time I heard real remorse. "You were always enough. More than enough. I was the failure, not you. Thank you for not destroying everything completely. Thank you for saving the company and giving me a chance to be better." I looked at this woman who'd made my life hell, who'd poured wine on me and called me garbage, and I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just peace. "I know I was always enough," I said quietly. "I always was. I hope you know that about yourself someday too." They say revenge is a dish best served cold. Mine was served in a wine-stained dress in front of 400 people. Patricia learned that day what I learned when my mother died. Underestimate the powerless at your own risk. Because sometimes the woman you're pouring wine on is the woman who owns your entire future. My mother once told me that strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up with your head held high. I stood up in that ballroom drenched in wine, and I showed Patricia exactly what strength looks like. Not the strength of money or position or breeding, the strength of someone who crawled out of poverty, lived in her car, built an empire from nothing, and refused to ever be small again. That's my story. The story of how the gold digger became the golden girl, how the failure became the CEO, and how the woman covered in wine got the last laugh. And you know what the best part was? I didn't just defeat Patricia. I freed her family from her cruelty, saved thousands of jobs, and honored my mother's memory by helping kids who were just like I was, scared, alone, and desperate for a chance. Be kind to everyone you meet. You never know who's signing your paycheck tomorrow. And remember, when someone tries to pour wine on your dreams, use it to water the seeds of your revenge. Justice isn't always fair, but sometimes, just sometimes, karma knows exactly what she's doing.